I'm back, gamers. Welcome back to the Cuddlepunk podcast. I'm your host, the mastermind, Veronica Vex. Thank you so much for joining me for the premiere of season 2 of the Cuddlepunk podcast. I am very sorry for the delay in episodes. It has been an absolute whirlwind, but we are going to make up for it right here because we have an amazing episode today. You have heard of this artist from their work with EKKO ASTRAL. Their album Pink Balloons has been featured in Pitchfork. It's been mentioned by people like Todd in the Shadows and Spectrum Pulse. It is one of the best albums of the year, and we have the drummer of that group with us today. Miri Tyler from EKKO ASTRAL is here today, everybody. Miri, how you doing today?
Hello, I'm doing so good. I'm really glad to be here.
The way that we met, I think, is really interesting because you guys were you were about to start your headlining tour that went across this August, and then you were just reaching out to like fans on Twitter just to make sure that they were going to the show.
Yeah, we we do a lot of sort of like guerrilla DIY sort of marketing like that, where it's just like we know the people that we want at our shows, and so we try to find those people. We seek out those people and be like, hey, we think this is something that you'd like, so come hang out, come find your community if you haven't already, because when we tour through cities that we haven't been through before, that's what we're on the hunt for too. So we're on the hunt for like more community outside of DC, because we know we have community here in DC where we're from, but like going through the Midwest and through especially states where like there are like anti-trans laws being passed and stuff like that, we want to make sure that we have the right people in the rooms.
Absolutely. We've been 2 minutes in and you're already interrupting. This is perfect. You don't jump on this desk for the entire 2 months that I've been in this apartment, and now that we're recording again, you're here.
Oh, what's the kitty's name?
This is Wyatt. He's a little asshole.
Hi, Wyatt.
Awesome that you're like reaching out in these states that have the anti-trans laws where you're trying to build that community. I will be 100% honest with you. When I got the DM, I initially thought that the only reason that you guys knew about me was because I know ANITA VELVEETA.
Oh, that might be true. I'm not sure. I wasn't personally the person sending the DMs from the account at that point. That would have been JL talking to you. So I'm actually not sure how we heard of you specifically.
It was probably just that I was following you guys. I'm putting myself on a pedestal for no reason.
That's fine.
I just wanted to
we know and we love ANITA VELVEETA, so that's very possible.
That's literally why, is because I wanted to mention ANITA because she's the best. I just saw her in Thought Crime when they came through Chicago on Saturday.
Awesome.
To see them be where they are now it's the most incredible thing in the world.
Oh my God, yeah. ANITA's one of the coolest people doing it right now.
The way I introduced you, I was talking about like the press and the YouTubers that have talked about you guys. I was listening to a podcast yesterday to get ready for this interview with JL, and she had been asked about like all of the different press stuff, and she seemed relatively unenthused about it. Not like to say that she wasn't like grateful necessarily, but just it's not necessarily what she's going after, which is completely reasonable. I wanted to know, as the non-lead singer of the band, what has it been for you to like see all of these outlets be promoting the album?
It's obviously been really cool to get recognition for the music that I'm a part of. That's always going to be a cool feeling. I don't know, there's kind of an interesting thing there, right? Because like obviously like that's not why we do it at all. We do it because we love music, and we do it because we love the community that forms around music. But like it's this weird thing where it's like, if we want that to actually grow and we want to keep being able to do the music, and we want the community to sort of form itself in a nice big like way, intersectional way, and in a national way, then it's like getting into publications like that will put us in front of more people does help that goal. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's not the main goal, but it is definitely, it's really cool, and it's we're super thankful for people who have written about us, and people who continue to write about us. From the local level, like Washington City Paper and places like that, to the national level, like Pitchfork and Stereo Gum. Like we're super grateful to everybody who has written about us and tried to get other people to listen to us.
If you want to see just how charming every member of this band is, I highly recommend you, after listening or watching this episode, to look up the Song versus Song podcast by Todd in the Shadows and Lena Morgan, and check out JL's episode where they're talking about Sonic Youth and Pixies. It's like they're
Yeah.
talking about late 90s indie rock and like that rise and everything. And it's a really, really good episode. And every member of this band is incredibly endearing. It's really great
I
to see.
remember the lead up to that podcast. Actually, JL was talking to me about like what they were going to be talking about, the Sonic Youth versus Pixies thing, and so we like on a car ride right before she did that at one point, we just like put on both albums back to back, and just like really talked about it ourselves. So that was yeah.
I think Lena from that podcast is the first time that I heard about you guys, because I've been following her on Twitter for a while and she has just been nonstop gushing about this record.
Yeah, Lena's great. Lena's awesome. Super kind.
Going on to the touring side of things, first of all, I want to know, they're one of my favorite bands ever. I want to know what it was like to be opening for Idols, and then taking the Idols tour and comparing it to your headlining tour where you were going through like G-Man and the smaller clubs and everything.
Touring with Idols was very, very cool. That was a pretty surreal experience. That was so far in my career, those are the biggest shows that I've played, and I think that is true for every member of EKKO Astral. So that was like definitely really crazy, being able to like just like loading into venues of that size and then seeing those venues actually fill up. Was pretty wild. It's a very different experience playing on a stage that like is that big, because I think we're all a little more used to sort of like the smaller DIY, more DIY venues. I think we all learned a lot from that experience in terms of just like what it feels like and what it is to have a super like high level professional run of show, and being on a stage where like I can't necessarily see everybody on the stage at the same time because the stage is just that big, you know what I mean? And so it's like having space to move around. Obviously, as a drummer, I can't move, but that was definitely one of the biggest parts of it for me, was like I'm looking out in front of me and I'm used to seeing the whole band in front of me, and like suddenly it's like, okay, that's JL, okay, Liam's all the way over there. Like it was definitely interesting, but very, very cool. And then to go back to playing those smaller rooms after the fact through the Midwest, it kind of like felt like a return home to me, that I like felt so comfortable in a lot of those venues. G-Man in Chicago, great spot. I had never been there before, but that's a really cool spot.
G-Man is a legendary spot for the Chicago DIY scene.
Yeah, and everybody that works there, super nice, super great. We made some connections there and felt really at home there. Also, shout out to Healer in Indianapolis. That was a really great spot as well.
I've got to get out. I've been hearing nonstop about Healer for like the past 6 years or so. I got to get out there at some point.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous, and it's run so well too, and it's feels very DIY. It's very community oriented, and it's like that's what I'm most comfortable in. You know what I mean? So like while like, oh look, now Kiko's interrupting.
Oh, hey Kiko. Hi baby.
Yeah, so like while like the goal is, again, like the goal career wise, so to speak, is like to play on those big stages in those big rooms with huge bands like that was a really cool opportunity, and we're looking for more of those opportunities. But I will always have a space in my heart for those smaller rooms, and I personally never want to stop playing those kind of rooms either.
I think that you guys are going to be able to play the small rooms for a very long time. You'll be able to play the small rooms whenever you want to within a couple of years. Like they'll be you'll be having to like do like anti-scalper shit to like get those shows in the small rooms. I keep seeing idols get brought up in interviews with you guys, not just about you guys touring with them, but they're very clearly a massive influence on you, not just sonically with the like big, like crashy, like drum and bass parts where those are like very upfront, but also with the album being this thing of like you wanting to get people to imagine a better world than the one that we have before us through showing the terrible world that could be. Like the way I could describe it in a statement is joy as an act of resistance, which is obviously Idol's album from 2018. Like you both seem to share very common ethos.
Yeah, yes, and that's something that we actually talked about a lot with them on that little run that we were on. They're really grounded individuals. We were able to connect on a lot of like our political observations, and like obviously and how like shit's fucked, you know, like they're from the UK and like they're, you know, I admittedly I know a little bit less about politics over across the pond, but like but like talking to them, it feels like there's a lot of sort of parallels just in terms of like, you know, leftists not getting their voices heard and just like the decline into fascism in general. Um, and so we talked a lot about that and how like yeah, it makes you really angry when you think about it. It makes us all really angry when we think about it, but like the idea that like the best way to make a more positive future is to lead into the future with positivity, rather than letting like don't stifle your anger. You let that anger sort of be the pilot light of the engine, but the conductor of that engine has to be your love, you know, and your genuine hope that things can be better and that we can make the world a place to live in for all of us.
I think you guys are doing a great job at making sure that the Zoomers don't fall completely into doomerism, which is extremely important because it's really easy to fall into that shit.
It is. I mean, I feel like you know, I have caught myself sort of, you know, on very cynical days, I've caught myself being like, you know, like, fuck all of this, nothing matters, like, blah, blah, blah. And I really have to like breathe for a second and just like sit in silence and remind myself that that's not why I'm here, you know?
The lyrics of the album, I want to get into that real quick because first off, how much input did you have in the lyric writing for the record? Because I know that Jail was talking about like you guys having like one big meeting like right at the beginning of making the record and like just throwing out ideas and spitballing different stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like when it comes down to like specific lyrical choices, I didn't have much say, but we did talk before, like as we were writing, we were talking, having conversations uh, in a broader sense about just like themes and stuff that like we want to talk about in the album, and a lot of it had to do with the ideas of like not descending into doomerism, like pointing out the bad shit and how do we ride that line, kind of thing. So like specific word choices I didn't have a lot to do with, but general themes I think was a conversation that was had with the whole band.
When you were hearing the lyrics for the record for the first time, on Sticks and Stones, did you expect that your polycule is toxic would be kind of the lyric that jumped out at everybody from the record?
Yeah, it was the one that jumped out at me first too. Yeah.
You just don't hear about a lot of like you don't hear about any sort of polyamory really still to this day in punk music, at least not at the level that you guys are at right now.
Yeah, which I guess that's true. I hadn't really thought of it from that angle, but I guess that's true, and maybe that's a little bit weird. Um, Maybe I'm spoiled in that like I know like a lot of other bands that have also mentioned sort of like that, you know, like Crush Fund, the Drama EP, love them by the way. And I don't know. I guess I wasn't thinking about it from that lens. I was more thinking about it just like when I heard that lyric, it felt like as funny as this is gonna say, and I hope nobody feels like called out by this, but I feel like you hear that lyric and like everybody like has like a group of people
Oh,
that
you have
maybe
an
they
idea. You
think
have an
of, yeah,
idea of who you're
like
talking about.
you know somebody in your life who that applies to, you know, like
For sure. It is a lyric that needed to be stated, I think, as a polyamorous person.
yeah, yeah. I mean, like if yeah, it's like so normalized now. It's 2024. It's like I think a lot of us, and especially like again, it's that idea of like making sure the right people are kind of listening. You know what I mean? It's like if you if you know, you know what I mean. And it's like I feel like the circles that I hang around in, it's like it's not even like a close to a taboo thing anymore to talk about. You know, like. Uh, and maybe that's not true in the mainstream yet. I sometimes I you know I'm a victim of the echo chamber sometimes, but
Fair enough.
but I think that's like also again that's by design. That's still ties back into the idea of like I'm just trying to make my life, my world look like the way that I feel like the world should look, and then lead by example. But yeah, no, I think the polycule's toxic and it's really great. Hey, yeah, no, the first time we were in practice and I heard her sing that line, I was the only one that actually like hit my brain and I was able to process in real time and I started laughing while I was playing that song. I think we had to like start over.
If you guys don't have shirts or bumper stickers or something like that with that line on it and EKKO ASTRAL small in the side, you need to get on that immediately.
That's a great idea. We'll definitely credit you for that when we start making money off of it.
Just send me one. Just send me one as soon as it
Word.
happens. All
Cool,
right.
cool, cool.
Hell yeah. The way that you have described your shows whenever like press releases are coming out from different venues or whatever is mascara mosh pit and also music for trans femmes, but not just trans femmes. I think that that's brilliant. And I think that it shows like while you are trying to create safe spaces for other people, you are not like pushing out people who may want who are inspired by your music who may not identify it but definitely want to support the cause and everything.
Yeah, I mean, we can't do this alone. It takes all kinds, you know.
There's not
Uh,
enough of us to do it alone.
right, yeah, yeah, yeah. We need our allies. The mascara mosh pit thing was kind of so it is an accurate representation of like especially what our first shows looked like that first year that we were playing in DC and we were playing mostly smaller rooms locally. It was like very majority trans femme, and there were like trans masks there too, non-binary people. It was mostly people who were like visibly queer and who felt safe pushing each other around in that scenario because it was a room of mostly visibly queer people. And so we noticed that and we started to lean into it with the mascara mosh pit. And we came up with that term because it's just kind of like catchy and people like alliteration and it's a good little marketing scheme, to be honest. But yeah, no, I think since we started our shows look a little bit different now. I think like just by nature of growth. There, obviously we still have that core like mascara mosh pit, but like yeah, you come to our shows and you're also gonna see like a middle-aged white guy in cargo shorts, and he's welcome there too. You know what I mean? As long as he doesn't harm anybody or like touch anybody without consent, obviously. But that is true of all shows anywhere. Um, yeah, I think it's the nature of growth. You know what I mean? We can't do this just as a community. If we want our community to exist, like without persecution in the world, in America, we have to, we have to show them that it's like we're just here doing our thing. You know?
You're literally the only it's always so frustrating because the argument that it always comes down to is we literally just want to exist peacefully, but we're not
Yeah,
allowed
exactly.
to.
Yeah, exactly. And like sometimes existing peacefully means a little bit of shoving each other. And that's fine because like historically that is a way to exist peacefully, you know?
It is. It is. One last question before we get into the bit. You guys ride for DC very, very hard, as you absolutely should. With the like legacy that the DC hardcore scene has with like Fugazi and Bad Brains and friggin' Black Flag and all of these other bands, does it ever feel as though the legacy of the city itself tends to like overshadow any of the new stuff that comes out?
I think there was a period of time where that was maybe happening. And maybe, again, it's this kind of thing where it's like, I feel like I'm probably in an echo chamber about it. I'm not sure how it's perceived from sort of like from outside, like the people that I know and talk to or in the mainstream. But the DC scene now, so first of all, it's always been built off of that legacy, and like those guys are still around. Like you'll still see Ian Mackay at shows and stuff. And so it's like, and there's I think there's a common understanding in the DC scene that like that is what laid the foundation. And even from like an ethos perspective of like how to move as a person attending a show, like etiquette and shit like that was kind of like it all kind of comes from that root of like the Fugazi playing at the church and stuff like that. Like um and there's definitely a recognition of that. But I think now more than ever, there is this surge of DC DIY bands that are coming through and really making something impactful and unique and original that doesn't even necessarily sound like what you would think like the legacy of Fugazi or Bad Brains sort of has laid out. Sometimes it doesn't even sound close to that at all, but it still is very much a part of that. And we all and it's very supportive scene, and so we're all like, there are so much going on in this city right now, that like if the mainstream still sees the DC music scene as just Bad Brains and Fugazi, then that is a failing on the mainstream's part. There is so much going on. It's not just us. It's not just Pretty Bitter, my other band, but it's also Pinky Lemon doing like a shoegaze thing. It's also bands like Pink House getting a little more indie. It's also bands like Flower Bomb with like really brilliant songwriting. And it's like, and it's all part of the same thing. And that's why, like, I was actually just talking with somebody about this the other day, like, and I think COVID had something to do with it, where a lot of it's very queer led right now in DC. It's like that is kind of what's happening is queer people are running the music scene and the DIY scene here in DC. And I think that's how it should be. And it wasn't always like that, though. And I think COVID had a lot to do with that, where a lot of bands kind of dropped off at COVID, and then a lot of bands sort of filled in that space and flourished because of it, I think. And we all kind of found each other on the internet during COVID. And then, you know, once we were able to, we started actually like meeting up a lot more and be like, okay, like, yeah, we actually know each other now after talking for years online and being locked in our house. Let's like put together these mixed genre bills. Like, let's get an indie band opening for like a hardcore band with like a, I don't know, a folk closer or something like that, because
y'all better have had some ska in there. Y'all better have had some ska in those fucking things.
Yes, absolutely. Trash Boat in the Ambush, not necessarily ska, but
ska never died, but you will, motherfucker.
That's a great shirt. Hell yeah.
Check out Ska Punk International, the record label. I've done interviews with a bunch of those bands. They're all fucking, I went to their festival in May and met a bunch of them, and I got the tattoo.
Oh, hell yeah. That's sick.
But no, speaking of like ska related stuff, like it's kind of the same, and queer related stuff. It's kind of the same thing in Chicago, where like I was not super involved in the scene before the pandemic, but you definitely saw bands that like either started just before the pandemic or started after the pandemic or lockdown or whatever, really starting to like kind of take more over. And there are very mostly queer bands like Rust Ring or Pink Squeeze or any of these other like specifically femme queer bands that have really started to like take over, and really kind of, they're the ones who are like shining the brightest, which I think can only be, I think that can only be a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
There has certainly never been a better time in the mainstream to be a lesbian, with like Chapel, with so fucking true. Chapel and Charlie and Billy all being gay as shit on the radio right now.
Absolutely. If I had been a teenager when Chapel Roan was the biggest pop star in the country, I might have transitioned earlier.
I cannot agree more. We were just talking about DC. DC music has always been very good at representing the city that it comes from. DC movies, on the other hand, movies set in Washington, D.C., have not always done the best job, because a lot of the time they're not actually filmed in Washington, D.C. When we come back, we're going to see if Miri can guess certain movies and whether or not they were filmed in D.C. or not. We'll be right back with more of the Cuddlepunk Podcast. Hey gamers, as usual, today's episode is brought to you by the patrons on the Cuddlepunk Podcast Patreon. If you want to help support the show for either $3 or $5 a month, you can head on over to patreon.com/the Cuddlepunk Podcast. $3 a month will get you early access to every episode of the Cuddlepunk Podcast. And for $5 a month, you get early access to the episodes, as well as your name featured in every episode of the Cuddlepunk Podcast. Thank you so much to Noel Rosen, Michael Gallucci, Andy Brummel, Julia Broman, Jack, Susan, and Gail Mack. If I mispronounced your name, please let me know, and I will change it for the next episode. That's patreon.com/the Cuddlepunk Podcast.
Thank you so much, and let's get back to the episode.
Welcome back to the season 2 premiere of the Cuddlepunk podcast. I am here with Miri Tyler from EKKO ASTRAL, long time writer for Washington, D.C., her hometown. The thing about D.C. is that, like I said before, music, pretty good at representing D.C. Movies, not so much. The thing about DC is a lot of the times when they film movies that take place in DC, a lot of the times it's not actually filmed in DC. If you ever see a movie that is set in DC and has skyscrapers in it, I'm sorry, honey. Somebody has fucked you over royally. They did not film that.
They think you're stupid.
They think you're stupid. Reminder, Hollywood still thinks you're stupid, but we're going to educate you guys a little. So what we're going to do is we've got a little game here called Filmed in DC. I have collected 8 films and 8 shots from those films, and Miri here is going to have to guess if they were actually filmed in Washington, D.C. or not.
Oh, geez. I don't even know if I know 8 films that are set in DC.
I picked some a lot of them have to do with, there are some that have to do with the government. There are some that don't have to do with the government. I did a good mix of different movies in here.
Okay.
We're going to start off with an absolute classic. If you are ready, Miri Tyler.
I think I'm ready. I might be very bad at this, but here we go.
The point is not, the point of the game is never been to be good. The point of these games have never been to be good. The point of these games is so that I can title the video something funny, and then it'll go well in the algorithm.
Nice. Hell yeah.
All right. Starting off with an absolute classic. Night at the Museum 2, Battle of the Smithsonian.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Reminder, so these movies don't fully have to take place in DC, but the shots in DC have to be filmed in DC.
So the shots in the Smithsonian are actually in the Smithsonian. That much I know. So does that count? Would that be a yes?
That would be a yes. That is enough for it to be a yes. The outside shots and the inside shots for this film were mostly actually filmed in Washington, D.C. This reminded me that I got to rewatch the Night at the Museum movies.
Yeah, it's been a long time. Wait, movies? Oh, yeah, there were how many? 3?
There were 3 total. I don't think I ever saw the third one, which is at the London Museum, which I hope ends with it being all burnt to the ground. Sorry, all of the relics recovered and then burnt to the ground.
Right. Yeah, that'd be the most satisfying resolution.
Absolutely. I forgot Amy Adams was in this movie. All right, next up. The American President. Have you seen this movie, Miri?
I have not.
This is a movie that was written by Aaron Sorkin, which would eventually inspire him to start writing The West Wing, the TV show.
Okay. I'm going to say no then.
That is correct. Most of this movie was actually filmed in Los Angeles. In fact, the Oval Office set that was built in Culver City for this movie was used again in Independence Day, which I have not put on here because it takes place in too many parts across the country.
Sure, yeah. I don't trust Aaron Sorkin, so that's what was guiding that answer.
He was apparently on crack the entire time that he was writing this movie, according to Wikipedia.
Okay, well then I'm right not to trust him.
No. It's not about the crack, it's about Aaron Sorkin.
Do we trust Wikipedia on that? I think we do, right?
I think it would be hey, I used Wikipedia for most of my research on you guys, and you haven't disparaged me yet. Next up, The Exorcist.
That's in DC? Oh,
The Exorcist is Georgetown.
Oh, right. Yeah, no, because we have the stairs. I know
right.
that scene at least is. Dang, it's been so long since I've watched The Exorcist.
Hey,
trying to remember.
Time's coming up right now. We're entering the spooky season. It's a perfect time for you to rewatch The Exorcist.
I think yes.
That's a no. Most of this movie was filmed most of the interior shots were filmed in New York City.
Oh, okay.
There was that exterior shot in actual DC, but most of the movie was filmed in New York.
Oh, fun fact, I'm wearing a Sonderbaum shirt, and last time they toured through DC, I subbed in for them on bass, and then we went and we walked up and down the Exorcist stairs together.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. The only time I visited DC, I was not into horror yet, so I got to go back eventually and go to the stairs and everything. Which residents do you think are more annoyed in terms of people walking up and down their stairs, the Joker stairs or the Exorcist stairs?
I feel like the Joker stairs probably happens more at this point.
Next up is Minority Report.
I don't think I've ever seen this.
Are you familiar with the film?
No.
So what this movie is, because this is amazing. This is Tom Cruise is part of a government entity that
Okay.
reads people that finds people who can like read the future, see the future to predict crimes and stop them before they happen. It is a very 2004 movie.
A Steven Spielberg film. Interesting. That shot that you're showing me is definitely not DC.
That shot right there.
Want to say. I don't think so.
This was mostly shot in DC. I'm very sorry, Miri.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I've never
was-
seen it, so
Fair enough. Fair enough. This is a movie that has fully fallen out of favor, I think, based on not only cultural relevance, but also its politics are not great.
is it like one of those just like fully 9/11 propaganda movies?
It was made in 2004.
Right, yeah, okay.
So
cool.
yes, essentially.
I would probably enjoy watching this for the bit.
Next up is National Treasure.
Is this still supposed to be in DC?
I believe this still in particular is supposed to be Philly.
Okay. Okay. Because I was gonna say there's a lot of this movie that's in Philadelphia. I'm trying to remember the parts that are in DC, whether they actually look like DC. I think they do. I think that it is.
This one was filmed mostly in DC. These shots were actually filmed in DC.
Yeah. This
Except
would be a fun rewatch too.
National Treasure is so good. Here, an interesting piece of trivia that I found about this one. So, all of the DC shots are in DC. The one in Philly that is not in Philly, they did not actually shoot in Independence Hall. They shot at the Independence Hall replica building at Knott's Berry Farm in California. St. Elmo's Fire.
Yo, you know what's embarrassing? I've never seen this movie.
I've also never seen it. I've heard mixed things about this film.
That still kind of, I mean, like that could be any like college campus, but it does kind of look like either Georgetown or American University. I want to say, I'm just gonna guess yes.
I'm so sorry. This movie is set at Georgetown, but I believe the movie was actually filmed somewhere in North Carolina.
Oh, okay.
They wouldn't
That's,
allow
I mean,
the Archdiocese of like Georgetown, because apparently they have an archdiocese at Georgetown, would
course.
not allow them to actually film the movie at Georgetown University.
what does an archdiocese even
It's
do?
something it's something to do with the church, with the Catholic Church.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
This might be the last one.
White House down? Well,
White House Down.
no, I'm gonna guess not.
That is correct. This one was absolutely not. This one was filmed in Nova Scotia, I believe.
Nova Scotia.
Yeah,
Okay,
just I
right
mean,
on.
it's
That's
I
little
imagine
random.
that most of the shots are in most of the shots of the actual White House. I imagine are CG.
Yeah, because you can't do that to the White House.
No, it is not the last one. This final one is one of my favorite movies. Thank You for Smoking.
Is this? I don't know if I know about this movie at all. Is this a movie about the tobacco lobby?
It is, yes, it is a movie where the tobacco lobby are the protagonists.
Oh,
It's a
great,
movie
love
about
it.
it's a movie about free speech, essentially,
Amazing. Love that.
but like a good movie about free speech.
Ken, I never heard of it, but I'm gonna say yes on this one actually.
Unfortunately, that is not filmed
Oh,
in. It was filmed mostly in New York and LA. I believe it
New
was
York
both
and LA.
two different locations.
They love those movies.
That was our last one. You honestly, hey, you didn't do bad. You honestly did not do bad.
Yeah, what did I get? How many?
I want to say you got 3 correct,
Out of
which 3 out of
six?
3 out of 8 is not bad.
Oh.
For this show, 3 out of 8 is not bad.
3 out of 8. Yeah, sure. Yeah, we'll say. I was kind of expecting you to hit me with Burn After Reading.
I
'Cause
thought
that
to
one
put
was.
Burn After Reading in there, but I don't think I ended up doing it. I had thought about it for sure. Just
Yeah,
one
that
sec.
one. It might be an easy one, you know. I know that
For
that
sure.
one was. Those are pretty unmistakable shots of Georgetown.
Absolutely. That was fantastic. I think you did your city well, both in the game and in the interview. Miri Tyler from EKKO Astral, thank you so much for coming on this episode of the Cuddlepunk podcast. Where can people find you and where can people find your bands?
You can find us obviously on the internet anywhere, Twitter, Instagram, EKKO ASTRAL at EKKO ASTRAL. You can find me also in those places at Miri Tyler, or you can find me around town, probably either at a DC show or one that I'm working potentially, or maybe you'll find me on tour through your city coming up. We're hitting Baltimore and Philly coming up soon. And then I think we're also going up to New York and somewhere else in the Northeast that I am not remembering right now, so I don't want to get it wrong.
We will have links to EKKO Astral's website and all of their social medias, as well as Mary's social medias, in the description of this episode down below. If you like this episode and you want to see more of the Cuddlepunk podcast, you could please hit like, please subscribe, please leave a comment saying what your favorite movie that's set in Washington, D.C. is, or what your favorite track off of EKKO Astral's Pink Balloons is. Please go out and stream Pink Balloons by EKKO Astral. It is one of my favorite records of the year. If I had listened to it before my top 5 mid-year episode, it would have been on there for sure. Not sure where, but it would have been on there. If you like this and you want to help support the show, you can go on over to the Cuddlepunk Podcast Patreon. That's patreon.com/the Cuddlepunk Podcast. Make sure to do it on the browser, not on the app, because you will get charged extra. Fuck you, Apple. You can also find my link tree in the description of this video, which will take you to all my social media sites, as well as video and audio versions of every episode of the Cuddlepunk podcast. The logo for the Cuddlepunk podcast is done by Lauren Young. You can find her Instagram in the description down below. The theme song for the Cuddlepunk podcast is Lose a Turn by Modify, Mod Stout. You can find her stuff linked in the description below, as well as Splitjaw, the metalcore started by former guests on this show, Mod Stout and Dean Matza. They just released their first single. You can go out and stream that everywhere. Splitjaw is one of the best groups that I have heard coming out. I've listened to all the demos that they've been sending me. You guys are going to want to listen to this. It's going to be a great time. Miri Tyler, thank you so much for being on this episode.
Thank you so much, Veronica. It was awesome.